This is Morgan Hazelwood, back again with more writing tips and writerly musings. Today, I'm here to share with you Show, Don't Tell. Readers don't need stage directions. So, this month I've been beta reading and critiquing short stories, full manuscripts, queries, and online snippets. I know I'm far from the first one to call out this issue. I've called this out before. I'm not even the first blogger on my feed to talk about this week, but I've been reading a lot of stage direction where it doesn't belong. So Morgan, what do you mean by stage direction? Well, if you're in a play or TV show or movie, stage direction is a great thing, at least for the actors. It tells them where to stand, what to grab, and when to leave. Here, how does this apply to writers, though? A lot of times we get into a habit of showing action without letting the reader know what's going on in the people's heads and how they feel about that. And that translates into telling and not showing. So here's an example from an earlier draft of one of my manuscripts, just a short little snippet. We passed a couple small townlets before reaching our destination later than I would have liked. We were both at fault for getting a slow start that morning. Well, fine, I suppose I should blame the slow progress on a break or two I'd requested. I would rather credit the mud weighing down my boots. Stopping to clear off a layer or four was a very useful task for boosting my walking endurance. I decided to mark them down as unavoidable delays. So, in that snippet, my character is basically in her head giving an opinion about how the day went. But I'm not showing anything. I'm talking about mud and walking and townlets, and that's about it. There's no dynamicy. It's all one point of view zoomed out. So it's easy to fall into, especially when you're drafting fast or struggling for word count. You're trying to figure out what the character is doing, where they're going, and that's okay. That's to be expected. You need to know this stuff. But when you come back to edit, you should recognize it for what it is. So Morgan, why is stage direction bad in writing? Now, I'm not saying stage direction isn't handy. It's useful both for the actor and for the writer, but it's pretty explicit examples of telling instead of showing. And we've all heard a million times that we should show instead of tell. And it isn't needed by the audience. So let's talk about why the reader doesn't need stage direction. It boils down to about three things. One, you should be showing what's happening. Like watching a movie unfold, scenes should unfold, not be described. I think that's one of the shortcomings of Star Wars. All the prologue that scrolls through at the beginning saves us a lot of time, but that's telling clearly and not showing. And I think a more dynamic way would be a 5-second clip jumping around through time, showing us a couple of these things from a high level. Just thought. Anyway, the second reason readers don't need stage direction, it's boring. It's a series of this and then that. And thirdly, it shows that you don't trust your reader. You don't need to say, he extended his hand and then grasped the congressman's hand in a firm handshake. Readers should know how handshakes work. You extend your arm first. So, now that we know what stage direction is and why we don't want it, how do we fix this? Well, there are ways to show action without falling into stage direction format. First off, pick verbs that show the character's attitude toward an activity. For the most basic, instead of walking, your character might be striding in. And that gives like a mental image of someone with their head held high, eager or nervous, ready to face the room, versus a character trudging in. You can almost see them scuffing their filthy shoes along the floor, eyes downcast. It's basically implied with trudging. So that's one way, is more dynamic verbs. Secondly, and this is useful if you're in a close point of view, you can use it in either first or third or second. Second's a little weird, but okay. But you can add in mental reactions, such as, let's go back to that handshake. With a tight smile, he shook the congressman's hand and struggled not to share a piece of his mind. So we get a little bit of the handshaker's attitude in there, just to, mix it up and let us know what the reader should be feeling and really kind of set the mood. And the third step, well, it's not really a way to show action, but it is a way to avoid falling into stage direction. Filter in non-action sentences. Instead of a paragraph detailing all the activities taken and nothing else, alternate with other sorts of sentences. What sort of sentences, Morgan? Well, there are several ways you can break up an action sequence. You can use dialogue. You can use other characters' reactions. You can filter in description of the world and the coldness of the gun or whatever. You can filter in, as above, more mental opinions. And here's also a great place for a single sentence or of info dump or background information. It's a great way to steady out the pace and give you an opportunity to share some background information without weighing down the story. So let's go back to our example at the beginning. I think it was rather interesting, but it was all from one point of view and it was all telling and not showing. So let's try this again. Dusk was coming in before I saw the chimney smoke heralding our destination. Wish we'd gotten a faster start. We might miss prayers at this rate, I grumbled, forcing my throbbing feet to pick up the pace. You that worried? Gellin looked back at me. I'd just rather be there before dark. Hey, you're the one who had to stop every hour to scrape mud off her shoes. He held out his hand blamelessly, and I glared at him. The mud was slowing us down, or at least me. Those delays were inevitable, I said, not wanting to admit that my feet were novices at the road. So the difference between those two snippets is 25 words. Hardly a drop in the bucket, but the world is a little less abstract now. Can you find examples of telling instead of showing in your writing? Share a snippet below and rewrite it for us. If you can't find one, maybe get a friend to look. Sometimes it takes outside eyes. You might look into getting a new beta reader or a critique partner. In any case, best of luck learning to recognize when you're telling and not showing. And that's all for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with all your friends. It goes a long way towards helping people find me. And I'll be back again next Monday with more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.